Have you ever wondered how a waist belt is made? If you are curious about that, you are in luck. This video I'm going to be sharing how to make a waist belt with multiple eyelet holes so you can adjust the fit on the body, as well as the belt loops where the belt is going to be sitting on the body. This project is a continuation of my trench coat series, so this is actually the belt that's going to go on my trench coat. If you'd like to see how I made this, make sure to keep on watching. All relevant links will be in the video description down below. And with that out of the way, let's get into the tutorial. Off camera, I've gone ahead to create my belt pattern pieces. The main belt itself is 24.5 by 3.5 inches in dimension, and the belt loop has to be wider or taller by, I'll say, 1 inches on the top and on the bottom edge, so your belt has enough room to slide in and out. Now the dimension of my belt loop pattern itself is 2 inches wide and then it's 4 inches tall. Now I'm going to be stitching away my belt pattern edges, so it's going to be shorter compared to the belt loop. Now they look relatively the same size, but don't worry, once I'm done stitching it, ironing it, it would work. The additional materials that I need to create the belt is this large buckle that I got from Amazon. This is 3.5 inches tall and 2 inches wide, and I wanted the belt to be very wide and I wanted a squarey shaped buckle. I'm also going to be using some eyelets for the opening to allow me adjust the size of my belt, as well as a grommet press to add the eyelets to my belt. I'm going to leave links to my grommet press as well as the buckles that I'm using in this project in the video description down below. Now I'm just going in here to cut out the actual belt piece itself. I'm cutting it on a fold, so I have a long piece and I'm cutting a pair of the main belt and 5 pieces of my belt loops. Now these are my main pieces here. This is the main belt. My fabric has a good weight, but if your fabric is on the lighter side, I would recommend you iron interfacing on the wrong side of the fabric to give it more stability and structure. With right sides facing each other, I'm going to be sewing both pieces of my main belt itself, and I'm sewing on a 1 centimeter seam allowance because that's how much my pattern actually has. Once I'm done sewing both long edges, I'm going to sew one of the shorter edges close, so that way I have that side of the belt short. I'm going in here to trim down the corners, so the sharp corners like this, and then the edge towards this side. So when I turn the belt is inside out, I don't have a lot of bulk on the corners of that side of the belt. So I'm just going in here to turn it inside out, revealing the right side of my fabric, and I'm going ahead to press this with my iron so everything is nice and smooth. After pressing this, I'm going to take this back to my machine, and I'm actually going to be sewing with an edge stitch around the edges of the belt. I say doing this really keeps the belt nice and flat. You can even go in to add rows of stitches if you want to add pattern and texture to your belt. That is a common feature that you would see on like fabric belts. Now this is what my belt is looking like so far, looking really clean. I'm happy with the outcome, as well as the length, because you want it to be long enough to wrap around you, or if you want to tie it and it sits comfortably. Now I'm going to go to the edge that is still open, and this I'm just going to pass around my buckle to get a sense of where I want my first eyelets to be. Now once I have that in there, I'm just going to pull it in such a way that I have, I'll say, about 1 to 1.5 inches outside of the buckle, and then I'm going to mark the middle point on the fabric because I want to place an eyelet there. That eyelet is where I'm going to pass the pin that the buckle has. If you have an embroidery machine that can make a circular shape, you can actually use that instead of placing eyelets. I don't just have that machine, so for me to do my eyelets, I'll have to cut like a tiny opening for my eyelets, and then taking this tall part on top, I'm going to pass that through one end of the opening that I just cut, and then put this on my grommet press in such a way that it sits like this. So the first half is underneath, and then I'm going to take the second half, and you want the more rounded edge to be on top of your second piece. And once that is over your opening, with the grommet press, I'm going to just press this down so I have a beautiful eyelet inserted into my belt. taking the buckle, I'm going to pass the belt over and under through that middle bar, and then I'm going to put the pin through the eyelets that I just made, and then pass the raw edge across that middle bar like so. Once I have that passed across, I'm going to fold the raw edge twice so I don't have any raw sides of my fabric showing on either sides of the belt. And then this I'm going to take to my machine, and I'm going to be sewing very close to the folded edge. It is quite a thick stitch, so be mindful when you stitch yours. You can also do this by hand or use fabric glue if you have that. Once I'm done stitching this, I'm just going to check that my pin actually sits in the direction that I like, and I'm happy with the outcome so far. The next thing I'm going to do is to actually mark the points. So to get this, I just put it around my body, around my waist, and then I put a pin there to mark where I want the tightest part of my belt or the first opening of my belt to be. And once I have that marked, I'm going to add more openings just for variety's sake. So if I want to have the belt on a looser fit, I have the option there. Now, like we did for the first eyelet, I'm going to go in to cut a small incision or a small hole to allow me to add the eyelet. So this I'm doing with my small scissors, and I'm cutting in such a way that the hole is open enough for me to pass the eyelet through without it like slipping all the way off. Now, taking the first end like I did for the first one, I'm going to put it over the opening that I just cut in this direction, and then I'm going to place this on the bed of my gourmet press, and then grab the second flatter piece and then put that over. So once I press the top end of my gourmet press, it locks both sides of my eyelet. Now this is what the first opening is looking like, and you essentially just need to repeat this for as many holes or opening as you would like. The more you add, the more variety in terms of fits that the belt would have on the body. So this I'm just checking that it sits in the middle, and I'm happy with the way it is so far. The pin is in the direction I want it to be, and it's looking good so far. With the main belt done and out of the way, I'm going to set this aside and actually create the loops. The loops are pretty straightforward to make. So I'm just going to show you with this first piece here that I cut using the pattern. So this I'm going to be folding twice, and I'm folding it in such a way that I'm hiding the raw edges and the wrong side of the fabric inside that fold. So once I fold it like that, I'm going to stitch on one side, locking both folds in place. And then I'm going to pass this through my machine again and sew it on the other side so it keeps the loop flat and you sort of have that double stitch happening. This process I'm going to repeat for the remaining 4 pieces of the belt loops. So once my trench coat is all done, I essentially just need to stitch the loops onto strategic parts of my jacket or my coat along the waistline. So once I pass the belt through, it sits in a way that I like. Now these are what my loops are looking like. I gave them a press to relax all of the stitching. You want your loops to be wider by at least an inch so you are able to fold it down and stitch it, and it's still wide enough to hold or house your belt. Now this is what my finished belt is looking like on my body. I just put it on to check that I'm happy with how it sits, and I'm glad I went for the big or the large size. However, I can make yours as slim or as wide as you would like. But if you enjoyed this video, do give it a thumbs up. Comment your thoughts, ideas and suggestions down below as usual. And the next video in this series will be finally making the trench coats. This has taken such a while to put together, but I wanted to ensure that I had all the steps included, so if you follow through the entire process, you had every detail covered if you wanted to recreate this trench coat for yourself. So stay tuned for that. Subscribe and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and until next time, have a good morning, afternoon and evening wherever you are. Bye.